Hi friends, how are you? It's Matt Christopher, and it's been quite a long time since I did a video, so I hope that this video finds you well. In the preceding time since I did a video on Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot has happened in terms of Jehovah's Witnesses, their policies, their procedures, and also their view of social media. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to today is that what's happened with Jehovah's Witnesses is they have once again being able to reinvent themselves. Now, many of us said that the old model, let's just put it the Rutherford model, was coming to an end, and that the message that they had, that exclusivist message that if you weren't a Jehovah's Witness, then you're in line to be killed at Armageddon, that was going to have to go out the door. And the primary driver of that was that governments around the world were not going to allow an organisation, especially one that is claiming to be a charity and working in the betterment of all people in any given nation, that they deserved taxpayers' money to be able to keep their religious enterprises going. That wasn't going to wash. Now, we see that many countries around the world have certainly started asking some very, very serious questions of Jehovah's Witnesses, and what I'll say, their social contract when it comes to the behaviour and the modes of control, I suppose, that they hold over their members. So we've seen a lot of shifts. They're rather symbolic, but I think they're also emblematic of the changes. So since the last time that I really did a series of videos, Jehovah's Witnesses have abandoned their unscriptural policies on the refusal for men to have beards, that somehow that was ungodly. And of course, women are now allowed to wear trousers or pants. And all kinds of hideous insinuations were made against women that wanted to wear trousers. But now, of course, that's all by and by. One of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight is the complete fabricating and whitewashing of their stated objectives as Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, those of us who have been born in as Jehovah's Witnesses know fully well that the witnessing work, the door-to-door preaching work, was claimed that this was ordered by God, and that the reason why Jehovah's Witnesses were so zealous in this regard was because if they didn't preach to people, then they would be blood guilty if people didn't get an opportunity to take their stand, essentially with Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, the public ministry as such has really ended. You cannot call the cart witnessing, if you want to call it that, the what I call the silent witness, where Jehovah's Witnesses go to the carts, or sorry, with the carts, I should say, and basically don't speak to anybody. They just stand there, talk to each other, or sit near the cart, as we see very often here in Australia. You cannot compare that to the basically the foot in the door Jehovah's Witnesses that we used to be, in which we literally had a map, a territory, and we went to every single house, and if someone wasn't home, we'd jot down that person's number. So those of you who may not know that when they knocked on your door, and for instance, you didn't answer the door because you didn't want to go out and speak to us, guess what? That was almost guaranteed that they were going to be calling back on you sooner rather than later. Now, what's happened now is that Jehovah's Witnesses claim that they've never said, and they've never been a part of a campaign in which people have had a choice that they become Jehovah's Witnesses or they die, or in fact they're going to be executed by Jesus Christ if they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. They now claim that they don't know who's going to be saved when it comes to their Armageddon, and that they've never said that it was only Jehovah's Witnesses that were going to be executed. Now, this is absolute and outright lies. Now, we know this as Jehovah's Witnesses or former Jehovah's Witnesses who were raised. We know that. We heard discourses every second week, I would say, pretty much outlining those exact points. There was no doubt about that. Now, I thought I would go back into my treasure trove of books, Watchtower books, and publications, and I would really bring your attention to what was said. And actually, I was stunned when I went back and had a look at the quite violent and excruciating language that Watchtower used. So the book that I'm referring to is Man's Salvation Out of World Distress at Hand. So I'll read that again. Man's Salvation Out of World's Distress at Hand. And this was published in the year I was born, 1972. So 53 years old. So I want to draw your attention, and I know many of you go and do the research. I really like to get your attention on page 349. I want you to, I'll just read a little snippet here. It's on verses 49. So it's on page 349, verse 49. And this is what it says. This is the end of this book. This is part of the crescendo. So let's just see whether there's any ambiguity here to the witnesses' official line that, they've never said that you needed to be a Jehovah's Witness or take their view. Otherwise, you're going to be killed at Armageddon. Let's have a look. Verse 39 on pages 349. Shall we die with the old system of things? Do we choose to be executed along with the political rulers, their armies and their henchmen in that day when Jehovah God, by his warrior son Jesus Christ, wields his judicial sword for executing all his enemies on earth? Very short must be the time that remains in which we are allowed to make the personal decision that counts for life or death when the sovereign Lord settles accounts with this old system of things. Our being spared alive or our being executed as condemned worldlings will depend upon the side where we choose to stand. Now it is not too late to decide the question. On which side shall you find yourself when world distress comes to its fearful conclusion? Now, that is clear evidence of the doctrine that was held by Jehovah's Witnesses. And most Jehovah's Witnesses to this day still believe that. Now, the important point is that if in fact, for active Jehovah's Witnesses, if in fact the words here found in Man's Salvation Out of World's Distress at Hand, published in 1972, if those words don't hold true anymore, and people that aren't Jehovah's Witnesses and don't take their stand with Jehovah's Witnesses, if they're not going to be executed, and it says, I love the point how it says do we choose to be executed along with the political rulers? So if that's not the case, the first question is, then is it fair that Jehovah's Witnesses, certainly those who were following the ideas of this book, that they were actually promoting acts of violence to non-believers? Is that now a misunderstanding? Okay, so if it would be, as was mentioned, it would be presumptuous to say that Jehovah's Witnesses are the only ones. Does that mean that at this period of time, Jehovah's Witnesses were falsely claiming that if you weren't a Jehovah's Witness, that you'd chosen to be executed? That's the first point. Second point is this. When we went from house to house and then called back on people that we didn't meet, we needed to make sure that they'd been given a thorough witness. And so that's what we needed to do. Needed to keep records. Many of you may or may not know that the area where you lived, literally there would be a map that would be handed out with every single person's essentially their property was on those maps, and we would go from house to house and we'd say, well, number 10 wasn't home, or number 44 wasn't home, or so forth, and it'll be written down, and you needed to go back at least 2 or 3 times. Now, the reason that was given at that point was that essentially every time that we visited people and they rejected the Christian message, our message of Jehovah's Witnesses, that their names were written not in the book of life but in the book of judgment, and it was written in pencil. Okay, written in pencil. So if they changed their mind, then it could be removed, so to speak. But that's why we needed to go back and back and back and back. And there used to be a saying, we don't work our territory, which is the area that you're in, to death, we work it to life. Now, with essentially the suspension of the door-to-door ministry and the cart witnessing, where you don't know who people are walking past, okay, and you're just waiting for them to come and talk to you, and just seeing you there and seeing the magazines, does that mean that Jehovah's Witnesses were wrong and that they didn't need to go back and back and back and check and make every single effort possible to make sure that we got Mrs. Smith or Mr. Jones or whoever it happened to be at home, that we needed to get that message to them individually? We needed to get the literature into those homes, because that might be the only way that they might get the message and then be able to make the decision for themselves, of course, to not be executed. Was that not true? Was that not true? Because certainly the idea of just standing there with a book and just standing there, which we used to see, that used to happen a lot. We used to see other religions doing that, standing there on a street corner with a sign saying Jesus loves you, or so forth. And we say, is that effective witnessing? Is that really giving a thorough witness? Well, the fact is, did that change? And has it changed? Well, clearly it has. Does that mean that the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses at the time was playing the role of God? And what I mean by that is, if now it's good enough to stand there silently, or to sit near, may I say, sit near the cart, that's good enough. If people walking past at the boat terminal or the train station, or a shopping, or near a shopping centre, that's good enough. As long as that publication is out there on that board, then that's a good enough witness. does that mean that the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses was involved in the process of judging everybody and figuring out how many times you needed to talk to them? And if you didn't make every effort possible to get back in contact with that person that you didn't meet at the door, then you were blood guilty. Now, there are 2 points I'd like to share with you. Now, the simple fact is this, that Jehovah's Witnesses, by their own standards, have abandoned their own faith. It's as clear as day. Okay? There's no doubt about that. Okay? Dress and grooming, choice of music, entertainment, all of these things, by their standards, have dropped down. Now, I want to make an interesting point about the beards. I asked about this or inquired about this idea of why did they change their mind on the beards? And this is what was said to me, is that the governing body don't want Jehovah's Witnesses to stand out in the world because it's so dangerous, and that now that beards are so accepted, they wouldn't want to be the people that didn't have the beards. Okay? Now, this is the point. Being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, you were encouraged to stand out as different. Okay? You were encouraged to be different in dress and grooming and so forth. So the point is, it's very difficult now to be able to distinguish by dress and grooming who a Jehovah's Witness is. So once again, was that a lie that you as a Christian needed to stand out as physically dressed different, groomed different from the people around you? Was that a lie? Okay. Now, there's a clear answer to that. It didn't come from God whatsoever. These are the edicts of men. But it certainly, and I hope, raises some interesting questions for those witnesses who had not come into the Jehovah's Witness fold now with its televangelist style and its rock pop music and its a casual dress code. That's not what we're talking about. The fact is this, that there is many Jehovah's Witnesses now of mature years that have an opportunity to get out from the organisation. Okay, the organisation that you loved, probably still love, is not the organisation you were baptised into. It is not the religion that you cherished and maybe even raised your family in. This is unrecognisable. And as I sort of just read from this publication, is that all scripture when it comes to witnesses is not inspired, it's just twisted and manipulated. Now, the changes will keep on coming, and I just hope that those who, what I would call would be traditional Jehovah's Witnesses, who did the hard yards, I hope that they are able to see that life outside of the four walls of the Kingdom Hall are a blessing. And if you happen to have a real love of Christ, I can assure you that that life outside of the organisation is a blessing. But for those who have been in and have realised that essentially their lives have been wasted, and the promise that was made to them of salvation in terms of a coming destruction and execution of the world. Well, this book here, that's 1972. We're talking 53 years ago, just for that book, let alone everything else that's been written over the years. So I really hope that this video finds you well. I'm Matt Christopher, and I hope to be able to bring you some more commentary on Jehovah's Witnesses. Thank you very much.